I sit before you today to discuss the importance of Save Our Sequoias Act, a piece of legislation that came together after working with our constituents and because members from both sides of the aisle recognize the importance of a robust forest management reform to protect our giant sequoias. For millennia, giant sequoias have stood as one of the Earth's most impressive natural wonders, with some even dating back to the time of Christ. But over the last few years, devastating wildfires have led to the loss of over 20% of these iconic trees, which in their own habitats only die when they become so large that they would topple over. Last year, along with you, Mr. Chairman, we led a bipartisan group of members touring the giant Sequoia National Forest in Tulare, California, so we could see firsthand what the fire-related devastation is doing to these groves. As a result, the Save Our Sequoias Act was born. I remember in that trip that we would get in our cars together, go grove to grove, Republicans and Democrats, with a lot of different key individuals who care about them, and just studying what is causing this devastation. And that is how this bill was created. I'm proud of the fact that we have 50 bipartisan co-sponsors who have shared commitment to protecting our giant sequoias for future generations. At its core, the SOS Act does four main things. It improves interagency coordination. It uses science to target high-priority groves for treatment. It expedites environmental review for groves protections projects using streamlined emergency procedures already in place, and provides land managers with new resources to get the job done. As we went through studying the groves, we know what needs to be done. It really just needs this legislation to allow the individuals to make it happen to protect them. And especially in California, with how intense these fires have come year after year, time is of the essence, and every day we wait can harm these giant sequoias even greater. One thing I have known is when dead trees and underbrush around the giant sequoias fail to be removed, it creates a tinderbox, serving in the natural accelerant for forest fires, acting like a ladder, allowing flames to get into the forest canopies and ultimately threatening those ancient icons. This is unacceptable, and I believe this bill actually shows it from the very beginning. This is not a partisan bill. This is something that everybody can work together. And the time to act is actually now. You know, Teddy Roosevelt once said, "A grove of giant redwood or sequoias should be kept just as we keep a great and beautiful cathedral." As a conservation president, his statement couldn't be more accurate. Perhaps that's why several giant sequoias have been planted on the U.S. Capitol grounds in order to preserve their history and inspire the awe to all of us. This bill is a result of the guidance and recommendations of those who know best, folks on the ground who work day in and day out with the giant sequoias. And that's why, from Tulare County, the Tule River Indian Tribe, to the Giant Sequoias National Monument Association and others, combined with the technical input from the U.S. Forest Service and National Park Service, this legislation would not have been possible. With that said, what I would like to do in introducing this, Mr. Chairman, I have a short video, The Last of the Monarchs, which was produced by Mariposa County Resources Conservation District, and I think really drives the point home about the need for action now to protect the giant sequoias. If I could, I would like to show that video to all. It really sets the tone of what we're dealing with. Not everybody got to travel out to see the giant sequoias. The thing that's really most moving is lots of times you'll find legislation where one member will sit and just write it and put it for their district. This is something that members on both sides of the aisle travel together. It's devastating to watch this. They don't grow any other place except on the western side of the Sierras. Longer than life of Christ. And every generation has a responsibility to keep it. Normally they just tumble because they become too large after 2,500 years and fall. But in 2 years, we lost 20% of them. Everybody, regardless of your philosophical opinion, understands how we can save them. We've seen it, and we sat down with all the key players. We had the different meetings, and collectively we came up with this legislation. There's one thing Congress can do as a whole together, is make sure these sequoias are around for the next generation to see them and honor them. And if you go through them, they're just so iconic and so massive. We've made part of them in some groves in a national monument, but that doesn't save them from a fire. And so what I'd really like to do, if we can move this bill together, we get it through the Senate, I think collectively the whole committee should go with us. Before we send it down to the president, we should sign it inside the grove, collectively together, and show the nation that this national monument, that what these trees mean, and that we don't let politics get in the way of doing what is the best use of keeping something as iconic as this. And if you travel here, you'll find they're not just enjoyed by those in the region. Around the world will come to America and just to these groves just to see them. The Forest Service, if you look at their badge and their hat, that's a giant sequoia sitting there. And I thought the comment in this video at the end, bureaucracy moves slow, fires move fast. I'd like to change that and show the country where our values and what we care most, and that we put them before all others. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the panel today. Thank you for those traveled so far to be a part of it that know it. And I feel very honored that we have a chairman that knows more about trees than anyone I've ever learned. And we've been working on this for quite some time, where he would bring experts in. Where the National Geographic, we watched this tree here, stood next to it. It's on the cover. And the difference that everybody can sit together and make of how do we make sure they save the next. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity.